Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hello! Welcome to Hyphenate Halftime with me, Randy Randall, and my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Aaron Farley. How you doing, Aaron Farley?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You have a lot of radio background in your life, don't you?
I mean, I have a bit. I did like it when you guys talked about college radio.
Oh, yeah.
In there.
Did you do some college radio? No.
Yeah, a little bit, but not knowing what. It flooded all these crazy memories of like, wait, how did we not burn that place down? Like there was no, like we all.
That's a lot of technology to entrust to college
and you
kids.
just send, like you just get a time slot and then they gave you a key for the door. And then you just go in during your time slot, which I think our time slot was like 12 to 2 a.m. or something, midnight to 2 or something. And there was just like a little folder that said, try to read these. And it was like little local businesses, but there was never like a training or anything. We're like, what is this folder? You just have to read this thing like once an hour. You try to read one or something. But then, but I do remember distinctly walking in and looking at that, like the 3 walls of records and going, oh my God, wait, we can play any of these. We can find like, it was like a very eye-opening. It's like something that I try to explain to our kids now, that like everything didn't exist in your little box, that you could just, I want to find out about Metallica. Oh, look, I found a bunch of rarities, and it just happens at the same time. I'm going to play it right after I play the new like Dua Lipa song also. Like all those things exist in the same place. And it was the college radio thing was so specific. And that's like the first time that my buddy Mark had a show, and he would play like Pavement, and he would play, a lot of old Sonic Youth, and he would play Melvins, and he would like all these bands that I was like, wait, where? I don't even know, where do you even find these records? I've never seen these at Tower Records or Hastings, our local Hastings. Like I've never even heard of these bands. And it definitely was that time.
It's amazing.
Where you'd learn
all
of that stuff.
It was like a portal to the underground.
Yeah, it was like a whole, it was just like a different world. And then when you realize like, oh wait, everybody can hear this in the whole town. Oh, this is even better.
They're just out there.
But it's amazing.
So we are here. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all. I got it.
Well, I was just going to say, we are here to talk about the Conan Neutron episode from last week. How familiar with Conan Neutron were you before the episode?
0. I didn't know him at all. When I saw that, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to wait and listen to the podcast and then listen to his bands. And the first thing I was surprised of is how heavy his music was, like the music he played. I thought he's such like a happy, like kind of funny, goofy guy, that I was waiting for something a little bit more like, I don't know what, like, and plus the name, it's kind of a nerdy name. Like it seems like Man or Astro Man or something like that. It would be kind of like a little bit upbeat or something. Then I listen, I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds like Melvins.
He has Dale Crover from the Melvins playing drums on all those records.
Totally,
and records it with Toshi Kasai, who records all the Melvins records. Yes,
totally.
So it's very
and I didn't know all that. So it was so it was like a really cool surprise. And then went back and listened to Replicator, which then once I listened to that, I'm like, oh wait, I've heard this band before. I had heard them, maybe even seen them play, possibly back in those days. And so it was a cool surprise to think you're gonna hear one thing and it's completely the opposite. Yeah, it was good. It's a good surprise.
Yeah, it was funny when I met him through Toshi, a future episode that'll be coming up. Toshi's an incredible producer, and he's recorded the last, 10, 15 years of Melvin's records, as well as a bunch of other incredible bands. But after we did the podcast, he asked if I knew Conan. I had only seen his name and knew the music, but I didn't know him personally, so he introduced us. And I could see why. As soon as I met him, I was like, oh, right, we're kind of like beige and then like off-white or something. It was like two colors very close to each other. I was like, okay, I can see how this would make sense. You meet one person, like, do you know this other person? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you guys would be like 1 degree of separation from probably everybody that you know.
Yeah, once we started pulling the thread, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But I think he seems to be much more outgoing and very charismatic, whereas I don't picture myself being very mellow. But I think next to Conan Neutron, I was like, oh wow, I got to pick it up. I got to drink some coffee or something.
I know he definitely
got a lot more energy than I do.
He definitely had the it's interesting. I think the first 3, like, everybody kind of has this like extreme hustle mentality that's so fun to listen to, of like, well, then I was in this room with this other guy and we were like, maybe we should start a band. And then 5 years later, he's playing bass on my thing, and then I put out a record with his other band, and then both of our bands are playing together, and I'm like, oh my God, I love that. I just love that, like, the kind of lust for life. Like, I don't know. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
What's worse that could
we
happen?
Lose some money? We're already losing money, so we're good.
Yeah,
we just lose a little bit more money. I love how he explained his band. That was like the how did he explain it? It's like the longest running band that just broke even or something like that. He's like, we never lost money. we probably just broke even. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what everybody wishes for, I think. Yeah. Can we just make our money back?
At the end of the day,
that's it. Oh yeah, the kings of breaking even. That's what he called it. The king. They were the kings of breaking even.
That's such a good thing. That's, and like life out on the road, like that's really just, like you said, the most you can hope for. Like the idea of the fantasy of actually making money and being profitable is it's so tough, and especially doing it more, doing it now. I feel like we're just the rising cost of touring has gotten crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
like
just the fact
that you're ahead of the game, like, prices go up.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it's just like gas prices and food prices. It's like gas being 4 times the amount that it was like when you were touring a lot around the U.S. It was like, oh, that's a huge. I mean, 4 times the amount for gas is like, that's like your main cost is just gas from one place to the other. And you quadruple that. And it's like, I don't know how people tour now. It's insane. Especially because we were all paying like when I first moved to LA and I had a 1-bedroom and I was freaking out that my rent was $385 a month. I was like, how am I going to pay $385 a month? This is crazy.
Every month.
Yeah, every single. Wait, this is every single month?
It's all sort of. I can do it like maybe once or twice a year, but I can't do that every 30 days. I'm supposed to come up with that amount of money. Oh, I know, but it's all relative to what you get paid. I mean, we laugh now, chuckling back, but when you go back then, minimum wage was like $5 an hour, You're like, okay, well,
Totally.
it's hard. Yeah, being able to pay.
Yeah.
I think I split that one bedroom for $500. So we had to come up with $250 every month. And again, I was like, working for minimum wage at a movie theater, like selling popcorn, and just try to get 40 hours that week while going to college.
Oh,
like,
$200 a week.
Yeah, so you try so hard.
I know. I remember thinking.
Yeah, well, I love Conan. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that in Portland, like every friend that I knew who was in a band could work 20 hours a week, and that was it. They were like, if I can get 20 hours a week of work, I'm good, and then I can just play
just enough,
and maybe like do a little bit of under the table work. And they think about that now. I'm like, yeah, 20 hours a week to pay your rent. You'd have to be making like $100 an hour still to do 20 hours a week, like to work part-time and actually still pay rent in LA or Portland.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Everywhere's gone up. Old men shake their fist at a cloud. This be an ongoing segment of this.
Yeah.
remember
back
when
then
shit was affordable. Whatever happened.
Well, and even back then it was like, oh my God, I remember paying $50 a month from all the old guys. Like there was Portland. I can't believe you guys are paying $250 a month. This is crazy. So,
yeah.
Grumpy old man syndrome.
I know. Well, I love it. Well, I love when you could like look through the couch cushions to get enough money to buy like some gas. Like I just need to like get some like gas in the car just to get me to work or something. Like I got like 50 cents. Okay, it's a half a gallon. Or I could get something. Like, if you could put $5 together, you could get half a tank.
Oh my God! Well, yeah, totally. I was just looking through some old photos the other day, and I have photos from the first Iraq War protests from 2000, 2002, 2003.
Well, that's not that. That was the second Iraq War.
The second
was Iraq.
The first protests. I don't know how many protests there were in the 90s.
First protest stuff.
Yeah, first protests of the newest-ish Iraq War. Anyway, the 2002,
okay.
And there was this guy.
The second George Bush Iraq War, not the first George Bush Iraq War. Yeah.
The second Bush's first Iraq War. That one.
Okay, got it. Yes, that one. That one, yeah.
But I have photos of like a guy holding a sign, like a protest sign, which was like "No blood for oil," and it was like, and it said $1 per gallon is terrorism. It was like $1 per gallon is terrorism, and I was like, "Oh my God, I wish it was $1 a gallon." Little did that guy know, $5.50 is where it's going.
Yeah. But getting back to Conan Neutron, I was really impressed, with his sort of like ingenuity or just sort of ahead of the timeness of, jumping on his podcast. He seemed to have a lot of like thoughts about how he kind of ran it. He doesn't do any advertising. He does them all live now. I was actually just a guest on his show, the Protonic Reversal. Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal is his interview show.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. He's broadcast it live, and then I think it gets archived online.
So he doesn't do like a live show with an audience.
Yeah.
He just does it live.
Well, there's like a streaming. It's like live streaming. Like if you could tune into the stream,
right?
And then it also goes out archived. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
He's done that, I think, for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like. I mean, again, I love that. I love the idea now that there's so many opportunities for people who are kind of creative, who are making music, but also, I mean, it brings up that whole, even what you were talking about where, you kind of miss sitting around and shooting the shit with your friends at a job. And you're getting that out, like the conversation, and they're like, I don't know, what are you up to? And you're listening, hearing new things and whatever. And that podcasting now kind of is part of that. Like if you're like, well, I want to listen to these other two guys talk. because these are the kind of conversations that would have happened. Like I like these people. I like this person. I like their interview style. And this is like that one guy that used to come into my work and just talk shit for 20 minutes. And like, he always had funny stories, and he was always like, had a thing. And it like kind of satiates that. I agree. Like when you said that, what's his name from Future Music? When he gave his assessment, Jack, when he gave his assessment of that podcasts were for older people who don't have friends anymore that want to listen to two friends talk. I thought that was the best assessment ever. I'm like, sometimes I'll listen to podcasts that I don't even really love, but if I know that the people are going to just talk for an hour and I just need like talking in my head to like, I don't want to listen to music. I just need people talking so I can actually focus on this other thing.
I think it's hard too. I think, especially through the pandemic, I think we've all kind of like gotten more comfortable with working from home and even just our daily life going about, like you don't have to go to 10 different stores to get different things, you just got to order it all online. It all gets delivered. So all those little micro transactions and interactions you have with people, good, bad, or indifferent, I think have gotten zapped or at least choked back in some sort of way. Just the random people you hear talking to, the different conversations you'd get to waiting at a bus stop or waiting for, in line for something. The amount of line waiting I do on a daily basis has been almost obliterated.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even just going to places. I think so much stuff now is, there's so much information that there's a lot less guesswork of like, I'm going to go to this store and see if they have this thing. Now you can like go online and like, I need a soccer ball? Do they have any soccer balls at Big Five? Oh, they do. Okay. Hold me a soccer ball. I'm just going to come in and grab it. It's like, there's less of kind of just going out and exploring and finding things, I think, in general. And then also a lot of people aren't, comfortable outside anymore. So even if you try to have those conversations, people are like, who's this creepy guy talking to me?
Well,
why are you asking me so many questions? Just take your coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. You don't really, you don't want to come off like a creep trying to have a conversation with a stranger. But I think that's also, I remember my mom or like our parents' generation, it was just, they'd strike up whole conversations with people in line at the grocery store or just people walking down the aisle. Like, can you believe this? Look at this. And they start talking about something for 20 minutes and you as a kid are just dying either in the cart or behind their leg. Like, Mom, stop talking to these strangers. It's the most embarrassing thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah. Who was that? No idea. I don't know. That actually,
no, just a stranger.
That brings up even what you and Conan were talking about with how you would be at a show and people would start talking to you and you'd get into a big conversation and then Shannon would go, "Oh, who was that?" And like, no idea. Because they know you from music, and even Conan saying like having fans of the podcast show up at the shows. And then him trying to figure out, like, okay, wait, is this someone that I've met before? Or, oh, no, they've just listened to my podcast for 5 years, so they are talking to me like they know me.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. I mean, I listen to people on podcasts or just know people from entertainment world, and LA being LA, it's not unusual to run into people or see people. And I have to really check myself, like, this person does not know what my face looks like. And so coming up to them, all they're seeing is this enthusiastic stranger, probably one of many that day. Like, hey, you, all right, my best friend, how you doing? Wow, I can't wait to talk to you about that thing. And I was like, my face is not a familiar face to them. So you have to approach with that kind of caution of like I was saying earlier, celebrities are like those rare exotic fish. You really don't want to tap the glass. I think as people, as non-celebrities, you really, it's important that we handle our celebrities with as fragile starfish that they are. If you tap the glass too much, you will spook them and they will shatter and run away. You have to really be nice.
Yeah, hey,
be nice
we know
to your
the same
celebrity
person.
Exotic fish.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. 9 times out of the 10, the celebrity fish will curl up in a ball and roll away if you speak too loudly in front of them.
Yeah.
They do not want you to go up and tell them stories about
and then
themselves.
they're like, I should have. I should have just ordered
stayed
it on
home. Should have gone
Amazon.
to
Why
Amazon.
did I come out again?
Yeah, why did I leave the house? Oh, the one thing I was going to say though, I recently was doing some remodeling work or doing some work, here at the house in the last couple of years. And I wanted to call Lowe's and be like, hey, do you have this one particular thing? Because it says on the website they have it, but that doesn't mean anything. I think these large big box home improvement places, you never know. You can't really, unless you have it delivered, and that takes a week. And usually these projects it's the fifth time you have to go back that same day because you forgot the thing and you don't know if they're going to have it in the right size. You got to return the one the wrong size you got, or just keep it. So I remember calling and I was on hold for maybe 2 minutes just listening to the music thing, and someone answers and they transfer me to someone else. And then finally someone just answers, it just sounds like the most stoned, kid in the world. Just like, what? Like, well, yeah, I'm looking for whatever this very specific gauge wire for, something, very hyper specific. And he's just like, yeah, okay. I'm like, well, it says you have 2 in stock. Can you just check to see if they're on the floor? Right. Okay. And then I'm just on hold for another 5 minutes. And I'm just like, I'm driving in. This was pointless for me to call.
Much quicker.
So it was fun to have to go in and just actually poke around.
Oh yeah. I love the good, have no idea what I'm going to do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Home Depot today. I'm sure I need something. And just walk down all the aisles and you go, ooh, clamps. I forgot I needed a clamp. I need a clamp and 2 bungee cords. And I was here for an hour and a half, and now I kind of satiated all of
later.
those needs. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
A hummingbird feeder, some tape. I need some tape. I need some screws. I definitely need the screws. Well, you gotta get the washers with the screws. And
look at this deal on step ladders. I probably need a step ladder.
New gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that glove you have has
always
a hole in
new
it.
gloves.
It's not quite fitting right.
Nothing better than a $12 pair of new gloves to do whatever
Gorilla
you're doing.
grip gloves.
Yes, exactly.
I've become a big glove fan. From years of touring, I realized the only time I hurt my hands really was loading and unloading gear. Walking through a door carrying a cabinet and just banging a knuckle right on a doorway as you go through. And then it's the kind of thing with, a cut or a big bruise on a knuckle, does not heal because you're always moving it and then bang it in 2 or 3 more times.
Yep.
So I've in the last 5 years, I've just been I'm just going to get Home Depot gloves. I'm just going to have my loading gloves in and out. And it definitely, I would have made fun of myself as a younger man who was invincible and made of nothing but scabs and bruises. I didn't care. But with age and everything else, it's no, I don't want to live in the van for the next 3 weeks with with this unhealing cut on my knuckles, and try to play a show every night. As it's horrible.
The singer drinks tea and the guitar player wears gloves when loading.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to. There was one other thing that got me thinking when you guys were talking, that a conversation I had with our daughter Lila, who is now 14, and I was trying to explain to her that being a nerd was actually a negative term when we were younger. And it didn't become, I don't know, I was trying to think of when it became a thing where good-looking people started saying oh my God, I was such a nerd when I was growing up. And there was a definite shift of when that happened. And I feel I don't know why it got brought up. I put it down in my notes for this one. I feel maybe he said something about being nerdy or maybe science. I don't know what he was talking about, but I just had this conversation the other day, and I wanted to ask you when you thought that switched, when it became kind of cool to be oh my God, I was so nerdy when I was a kid. There was a definite, you would have never said that when we were kids. It would be oh no. Right. Being a nerd was legitimate Dungeons and Dragons and New Balance shoes. And there was just a whole look, and it was the really smart kids, but they were actually also very into these things that were nerdy or whatever back then.
Yeah. I think the glorification of nerd culture, I think, came from two directions. And just off the cuff, just my first thought of this is that I think when you have like, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs becoming, the richest men in the globe of the world, and they come from a nerd computer science engineering background, but they're also now like hold that place in the lifestyles of the rich and famous or whatever, now that morphs and evolves into, your Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos types. But it started, so I'd say like end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, in this kind of like Windows 95 sort of big blow up, and you start taking these kinds of people seriously as cultural influence or people of means and power within a culture. And so I think that's one side of it from kind of top down. And then I think there's the bottom up as well of like indie rock, or this kind of like college rock, thing or whatever, alternative rock, emo thing that happened. I think there was a nerdification of that thing, sort of like Weezer, but more endemic or authentic version of that, of people really being into that kind of stuff, the math rock sort of thing, and thrift store clothes and that sort of stuff. So I think it, coming from both sides, like, oh, you can look nerdy, on the cheap from thrift stores, ill-fitting clothes and comfortable sneakers, and then top down, you could, it's something to aspire to, and then I think it's codified into stuff with like Nerdist podcasting, that Nerdist sort of world of like whatever that was, 15 years ago. Yeah. But it's no, I think the nerd sort of thing, became a trend, and it's like, who knows? And then it's good to know it's still a thing. But I don't know. I think it's cool.
And then it just became like a whole different word in the English language. Like it went from being like kind of a negative way to make fun of someone or something to this like, no, it just means that I'm really into something now. And I want to know if those like the real people who are still like real nerds by the beginning definition of, if they have like a secret definition for themselves of like, oh yeah, no, they're nerds, but we're now, and it's not it's not out there. It's secret. It's like, no. We're going to keep this secret. They steal everything from us.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting sort of question too. Just what does alternative culture look like when that sort of stuff has all been sort of commodified? Is that even a viable term? Is there an alternative to anything, or no? Is it all just? I think we're all just hyper niched out in our individual little pods, in our little hyper niche communities. Just talking to our own internal friends, and I think that's even changed the whole idea of what a celebrity is. I mean, I think obviously we ring the bell of like just being dads, but this feel like YouTube celebrities, like seeing my kids are stoked on Mr. Beast or something like that, and I'm just like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You got me. You stopped me. You turned me. I've turned the corner and being out of it. I used to be with it. Then they changed what it was, and now I'm old and in the way.
Wait, that's not it anymore? What's it?
Yeah.
Wait, you can't even define what it is? It just like exists.
Exactly. And it'll happen to you. It'll happen to the kids pretty soon. So there's going to be, they're going to be 25 years old, and now Mr. Beast will be irrelevant, and it'll be some other thing. And you're like, yep.
Yeah.
Because it happened to us. We used to be, with the things that our older brothers and sisters or parents were into, like, I don't know. No one knows what that is.
Well, and I definitely remember thinking before the internet, like, well, we've done it all. The human race has done it all. I can't
That's
see.
It. Wrap it up.
We made television, and obviously, our parents were not smart enough to see television was coming. It was like they thought radio was great, and then television came, and of course, television, that's the end all. What could ever be like? What could ever happen that would be greater than television? And now it's the internet, and now it's like, what could ever happen? And like, but then it's kind of scary. Like, oh Jesus, what is going to happen after the internet? The internet kind of thinks like, or seems like it's the end all be all at this point.
Yeah, well, I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out with the AI and streaming rights and everything else, and all these, the writers and actors strike. I think that's what they're trying to figure out. Like, oh wait, what's next here? How does this all? How does it all happen?
Everything written by computers.
Well, I think but then also will be reviewed by computers.
Yeah,
and watched by other computers. It will have nothing to do with us.
Well, and
entertainment made for computers by computers.
Yes,
humans are obsolete.
And I do think that it will be that it will bring. I mean, I guess it makes sense that everything is becoming so niche, because then it will be all those little niche things like the computers. I mean, I'd imagine that most of those, like the Marvel movie, like those big movies, are pretty much written by committee at this point anyway. Like there's the okay, by the time you hit page 5, there has to be this many fight scenes, and I'm sure that there's all of that stuff. So it's like, what's the difference of a computer writing that and then a human going in and like punching up little jokes or whatever? But then it always seems like when music gets that way or something, where it gets so kind of controlled and perfect that everybody goes, I don't want perfect anymore. And then someone fills that need of like, this is anti-AI music. This is anti-computer movie. This movie has no plot. This movie is shot upside down, whatever. And then people go, this is the new thing. Or you get like the Lars von Triers, and you get the Harmony Korines, and you get those kind of things that like sneak up, or Larry Clark or whatever, and you like sneak up out of nowhere, and then everyone goes, I didn't see that coming. And then that just blossoms a whole new thing.
Yeah, but I just wonder if can you just turn the quirk control setting up a little bit on your AI? Like, we're gonna need to quirkify this a little bit more. We're gonna need the non sequitur quotient much higher in our third quarter, chaos sphere section of this film. I think that'd be the beautiful thing, if you could write some kind of AI algorithm of just surrealism nonsense, And just I feel like a computer would do that just as easily as it would. You can make art films, generated by AI. That's what it always feels like whenever people read stuff or writings. Or, it just feels like some type of like beat poetry, like out on it's skewed, in kind of nonsensical language.
Yeah,
like we just do that for film. And you just watch the most like anachronistic sort of collection of images put together, and like, that was kind of brilliant. That was kind of great.
Yeah, like if you gave a toddler an adult brain and then asked them to like tell you a story for a little bit. They knew everything, but they still had the toddler like, well, this doesn't make sense, but I guess I'm just gonna say this out of my face. These words are just going to come out. They don't make any sense to me, but I feel like this is what you're asking for. I feel like that's what a lot of the AI stuff is. I don't know. I think it's super weird and interesting. I mean, the other thing, like my buddy Curtis, he was talking about some book to his friend, and his friend was trying to explain it, and he's like, "Hold on." And he just told ChatGPT, who was like, give me a 2-page synopsis of such and such book. And he just sent it. He's like, this is what it's about. And Curtis was like, yeah, that's what it was about. Exactly. That was like a perfect synopsis for that book. So we don't need like synopsis book reviews from a point of view anymore. Like you basically have the what were those things that you would get when you didn't want to read the book? And you'd get the Cliff Notes.
Oh yeah, the Cliff Notes. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
you'd get the perfect Cliff
all that
Notes
stuff.
version.
That's the easy stuff. No, I think that the idea, I'm still like fixated on the idea of the toddler, like narrated, outline or something. I just feel like there would be some kind of maybe there's like some type of future entertainment where it just makes you feel like you have some type of brain condition. The audience is like, put in some capacity. Like, what type of art can be made to simulate different versions of brain aphasias or some type of,
Well, I just keep thinking that
logical breakdowns in your own audience experience in film and art and everything.
Well,
like, the thing, like, this is what, like, those simulations, like, kind of looks like this, a magic eye poster, like, this is what it would be experience if you're experiencing a cardiac event. This is what it would look like. You're like, oh, okay.
I feel like, we've created this perfect. It's a new genre of film. It makes you feel like you're dying, but in a good way.
Yeah, I could say I'd subscribe to that YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun to fall asleep to every night. Like, okay, I get it. I think any way to bypass the conscious brain in art or entertainment and just go straight to some type of subconscious sort of awareness, which I feel it's almost like a David Lynchian sort of like meditative, motivator. Something to just bypass your consciousness as quickly as possible and get into something else that just is beyond reason or logic.
Yeah,
it's just art for art's sake. I feel like those like Miyazaki films, some of those Studio Ghibli films I've seen were like that, where I'm just like, I understand nothing. This is so foreign to me, and not just because it's from a different country. I think it's from a point of view of which I'm just have no context for within that world of animation.
Well, I mean, I feel like that about David Lynch stuff. I love David Lynch, but then it gets every once in a while it gets to the absurdity parts. I'm just sitting there going, okay, do I just sit and try to enjoy this, or am I trying to figure this out, or is there a point to this, or maybe there is, maybe there's something later, or maybe he just was like, turn the camera to the left. And that was it. He just had a thought because that was
right.
it. But I do think it's a good point you bring up, because I do think that even like a Lynch film, if someone made an AI David Lynch film, it would probably look pretty similar to a David Lynch film, to a regular. Like, he's probably the closest that I would be able to think of someone who's been doing AI films but out of his own brain for the last 30 years.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Or who's the guy with the big hat, the absurdist movie maker, super graphic.
Jodorowsky?
Yes, Jodorowsky. I tried to watch
Holy Mountain.
a couple Jodorowsky films, and I'm like, I got about 3 minutes in. Like, I don't know. I didn't need to see someone like pulling things out of their body and crawling across the floor. I got it. The first 3 minutes I'm in. I got it. I'm there with you. But I feel like those films are probably closest to what an AI would create. If you were like, make a really crazy art film that had these characters, and then the AI would go like, well, if you want me to use the human mind and the internet as my inputs, here you go. And you'd be pretty close.
Yeah. I feel like so far, the AI experience that I've had would be something closer to that. Like the best use case for some positive thing would be, to just push the limits of abstraction with, with this type of art. Because the other side of it too is that I have no research in this, but it just feels like it's just pulling from other people's stuff. It's like kind of just cribbing like all the visual stuff I've seen, of like the AI like created the AI created this image. I'm like, it just kind of looks like somebody else's thing with somebody's face slapped on it. Like, it just looks like somebody like it's a real painting that you just like turned 20 degrees and did a bad morph job on someone's face in Photoshop. Like, that doesn't really feel like new art. All this stuff just feels like rehashed, warmed over dog shit of other people's art.
Well, and now it has a look. Like, it took like a couple months, which is crazy that it only took a couple months, but that it took a couple months at least. I mean, maybe there's a ton of AI stuff out there that we don't even know is AI stuff, and we're being completely hoodwinked. But a lot of the stuff that people put up of like when they're prompting what's the Mid-Journey or whatever, and they're doing their prompts, it still has this kind of over commercially slick, perfect lighting, kind of cartoony, but not cartoony look to it. That is now, like, when you see it, it was super interesting for like a couple months. And now when you see it, like, oh, you're good at, that's a funny prompt. It's kind of now, it's like what can be, the prompt is actually what people are reacting to.
That's the art.
It's like I saw that I follow him, Jason71. I feel like he was a friend of Aaron Espinosa's maybe when you guys were doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, he does a bunch of graphic and AI stuff, and he posted something about, it was like if the Gilligan and the skipper were army buddies from World War II, and they were, it's like this thing, and I was like, that's a really funny prompt. It made like a really funny kind of surreal image, but the image didn't really matter. It was like the prompt was funny. So I feel like that the prompting is where, and that's the human part, right? It's like,
and that's right.
The AI part, the AI part builds this prompt, but it's the human part that people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. Or even those ones where it's super trippy and you're like going through a cave and all these images are coming at you that people were doing for a while. It was like the thing that made that interesting is like, oh my God, you did it all out of eyeballs and dragon mouths or something, and but that's what made it kind of interesting, that like everything that was morphing together. So I do feel like until the AI starts growing, which I wonder if there will be AIs that will start like pushing like, well, I keep getting used more if I do crazier stuff, so I'm going to start doing crazier stuff because I'm getting used more or something like that. That's what will be when we start seeing these films and everyone's like, oh, who did that? And everyone goes, wait, no, who started that website?
It just
no
appeared.
One knows. Wait, they learned how to buy their own website. They learned how to take over a server and create their own websites, and they made up a bunch of fake people who started them. Oh, this is where it
take
gets
over
good.
a movie studio and just start releasing things into theaters. Like, nobody knows who is running Sony now. Sony's just being run by a server somewhere.
That's weird. They changed the name to Borner Ruthers.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Borner Ruthers Studios.
Well,
weird. I guess someone made that decision.
Here's my $10 a month. Sounds great. Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God! Oh, that's this thing too about that idea of the art that as humans we keep coming back to the thing that reflects our own humanity back at us. Is it really is that narcissism, or that, but in a classical like art sense, and that that we want to see ourselves reflected back. I mean, the greatest thing you can do is show somebody themselves, and I think the way that happens is through showing your own humanity, and inherently, if it's honest and it's accurate or true, and with as little artifice as possible, there is that gem of spark of humanity, of internal sort of longing and beauty and pathos that ultimately is the thing that is satisfying and ultimately like attractive, and what people want to have put to them in their art or entertainment or anything. There is something, there's the spectacle of it all, but you want to understand the motivation or be able to walk through the character as a proxy for yourself, have some identifying, you save the cat, something early in the story, in the screenplay, something where we go, oh, this guy's a good guy, I like this. Okay, I would do the same thing there. Therefore, now we've made some kind of bond, and I'm constantly questioning, what would I do in this situation? No matter how much information you have, you can still relate to what's going on in screen as if it was happening to you yourself, and you're being taken through this adventure by proxy, so that you can experience. You can almost exercise your own demons, or you get scared, you do the thing, you go, wow, okay, and then you can safely turn it off and return back to your mundane life. But you have to have that connection, right? So the mirroring of humanity back to you, and I think that's the tricky part in anything that's 100% AI generated. But like you say, AI as a tool in which the humanity is, look what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to make my robot do backflips. And you go, ooh, okay, that's interesting. I like the guy who thought it'd be cool to do the backflips. I like that guy. The thing doing the thing, I get, and I feel like that's already what shit is. I feel like with the CGI, like you just see the biggest explosions, and you see whole planets being collided, and there's dinosaurs and an alien and a thing, and you're like, it's all ones and zeros. There's something, even if it was a sock puppet with some chocolate syrup on it or something, you just go, well, that looks real. But even that, at this point, everything's captured digitally. And so I think there's something, beyond photography with this thing, when it's like as close as you can get it, you're still, the read of it is always like, okay, all right. Well, it's got to say something. It's not going to do it by itself.
Well, and like you said, that stuff is all prompted too. It's like when you're a animator like that, you're working with these programs that already have like, what does a bubble look like? Okay, I'm going to take a bubble, what a bubble looks like, and I'm going to change it a little bit, and I'm going to put the light here and make it this color, blah, blah. But it's not like each of those people is creating their own bubble that it's not already in the system, or video games or whatever. It's like you're taking trees, you're taking all these things that are already kind of built out by this system. And that's why all those movies kind of look the same. Like the explosions look the same and the coloring looks the same. And because it's already built into the system, and you're not reinventing the wheel every single time you're starting over, which I think that's probably where the AI stuff will get boring in a lot of places, because people will go, looks like the other guy's stuff, except for it's funnier or it's, like we've seen that before. And then, and we're also only talking about art and media and entertainment, which completely changes and like morphs. Probably where the real problem is governments. Rules, laws, those kind of things.
Yeah, I'm sure it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. But I mean, that's but even the idea of recycling stuff, I think, like going down a rabbit hole like Star Wars, like a lot of the faces in the cantina were like masks that were made for something else, and like you could trace like, all these, the costumes in one movie could be used for another movie, but there's still something physical about it that just kind of almost makes it more fun that way, or the backgrounds or the sets. We had the one set up, so we did this one and that one. I think there's always those types of like, in theory, I don't mind it, but I guess when it's just coming from a palette of predetermined, pre-designed shapes and sizes, we're also already in such a, regurgitated sort of entertainment cycle as it is, just getting the ntth version of the thing, and you're like, didn't I just see this movie? Like, this is the same. That was one before. This one has a slightly different ending. This is when the one at the end where the big pillar of light shoots out of the thing to like get the aliens down. That's this one. I mean, this has already been done ad nauseum for the last 20 years, but I don't know. Anyway, Conan Neutron. That was a cool episode.
But I was gonna bring it back for 1 second because I think that is interesting to then talk about something like Conan Neutron or No Age, or like you guys had your groups of people in different places, and you're like, listen, we don't need the whole shebang. We don't need the tens of thousands of people. We just need, as long as we have this amount of people in this place and we can go from place A to place B and do the whole thing, we can exist as our own entity that doesn't have to kind of try to conform into something else that we don't want to do. And that is, we find these other people, we find these little niche towns. And I remember hearing stories about the Melvins early, or like 20 years ago, or they probably still do it. Who knows? They've changed things up so much. But that, like that buzz was like, I want to go to only towns we've never been to. Like I want to go to only towns that are smaller than 20,000 people. Let's see what happens, and then we go to all these places and then find out like, oh my God, there's enough kids even that listen to us here that will come and see us play. Like, oh, we're going to open up. Let's go to even smaller towns. It's like those kind of things of like finding those creative ways to find your audience. Now that the musicians and artists have more control over how you have to do more work, but you also have more control over getting in touch with people, staying in touch, finding ways to find your fans and whatever, that these smaller niche projects can like go for years and years and years on that, based on that, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely been the great leveler of of just the flattened media landscape. Like you just put it on YouTube, see what happens. You could get 1 million things, you could get none, or just put stuff up. Just put stuff on Spotify, on Bandcamp. So the distribution model is open. That's a global audience that potentially you could reach. There's not to say the algorithm of who sees what through social media, and those different types of things, but. There's still gatekeeping on all levels of that sort of thing.
For sure.
On the cultural side of it, but in theory, anybody could put something up. Like my son has a YouTube channel up, and he gets you just put it up there. I don't know. It's like, can we check how many views has it gotten? Like, it's still on that 7 views. Like, okay. We'll see. I think all the family has seen it, all over the world, but it lives up there. You never know what's going to happen.
So fun, man.
I know. I just was talking to a friend over the weekend, and she said she was towing a car behind her RV. They were camping. I asked how the summer was, and then at some point she realized one of the wheels had stopped rotating on the car they were towing, and so she's just dragging it. Like one of the 4 wheels is just being dragged, and she showed me a picture of it, and it's just the rotor down to the rotor, like it was like rubbed in half. It was just just half a rotor, like the whole wheel had exploded, and she'd been driving for miles with it. And I asked her, I was like, "Well, is it online already? Like, has anyone sent you a video of that? Because somebody must have taken a video of you in this giant motorhome towing a Honda Fit with the sparks and flames just shooting out the back of it." like
they've
how
already
does that
made
happen?
hundreds of
And,
dollars off it.
Yeah, has this not made the rounds of that you were probably viral somewhere of this person?
Yeah.
Like where's the footage of it? Like if you couldn't see it, in her rearview mirror, she had no view of the wheel. She could see the car was still there, but she said it sounded funny. The sound was kind of weird.
It'll turn up on some list of viral Instagrams like 10 years from now.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, that was that thing. Yeah. You just never know whatever happens in your life, whatever dumb thing you do, could have a life of its own somewhere down the line.
It's crazy, man.
The future. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and for catching up with us. I should, I was thinking I should start an email, and we could give out email if people wanted to write in and send questions.
Oh yeah. We just start a Gmail.
What would the Hyphenate halftime at Gmail? Is that available? How do you...
I mean, if it's not available, that would be crazy.
I wonder, can I? Oh wait, okay. Add Gmail to. Oh, I don't even know how to do this. Okay, I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay,
we'll figure it out for next time, and we'll give you guys.
Put it in the. We'll put it in the description.
There it is. Awesome. All right, man. Thanks. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Randy.
Or in 2 weeks. See you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Bye.
2 weeks.
Also, I want to thank our podcast partner and swell dudes over at Ruinous Media. You can subscribe to Hyphenate and other music podcasts over at ruinousmedia.com/hyphenate.